riches of this world will fade.
Hey everyone, I wanted to share with you a little mini devotional that I did as part of one of my classes this past week. It is a little bit research focused, so this devotional talks about a different place in the Bible where they did some research. And so it is out of the book of Nehemiah, one of my favorite books ever, and so I thought I'd share it with you. So we all know that the Israelites were God's people and that their home was in Israel. And we know that as part of their story, they were exiled and banished to a different part of the land, which was not their home. And it was just really a devastating time for them. And so finally, after a good chunk of years, God brought his people back to their home of Israel. And it was quite a shocking time because they were so glad to be home, but all they saw was just complete devastation, rubble everywhere, pieces of their former lives that really, it didn't resemble their lives anymore, and it was just very troubling. And one of the important things to know is back then, one of the things they did around cities was to build walls, and so the walls were actually made of rocks like this, and they were very high, and they were used to protect and define their cities. But when the Israelites came back, all of the walls was just complete rubble all over the ground. And so they saw all these pieces of their former lives, but it didn't look like their life, and it didn't look like their home. And so Nehemiah led a charge to do some research and to figure out what pieces they had so that they could build. And so I wanted to just take a second and ask you to think about what pieces you have in your life that you might be able to use to build. They could be anything that you could do things with, anything you could use to accomplish, anything that you could leverage to build. I just want you to bank that in your head for a second, and we'll go back to Nehemiah's story. So as Nehemiah was doing his research, we see in verse 15, this is out of 2:15, it says, "So I went up the valley by night, examining the wall. Finally I turned back and re-entered through the valley gate." We see in verse 17, he says, "Then I said to them, you see the troubles we're in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire." And so what do we see as Nehemiah is doing his research? He's trying to look at the pieces. He's examining the rubble. He is seeing that there is ruins. He's seeing that there was just fire everywhere, and that was the research that he figured out, the pieces that he had, so he could do something with them. And so the problem is that Nehemiah knew that there was a missing piece, and so we see in verse 18 him figure out what that missing piece was. In verse 18 it says, "I also told them about the gracious hand of my God upon me, and what the king had said to me. And they replied, let us start rebuilding." So Nehemiah knew that all the physical pieces, all the rubble, all the decimation that he saw, he could use to rebuild, but that the important missing piece was God's hand, so that they could rebuild and reestablish themselves in their home. And so I just wanted to ask you to think about Nehemiah's pieces plus God's hand equals building. And then if you think about what pieces you might have, they might be money, maybe your car, maybe your time, maybe your wisdom, maybe your talents. And if you add God's hand to that, you too have some amazing things that could be used to build. So I just really wanted to encourage you all to do a little bit of research in your lives and think about, what are the pieces that I have? that we can take and unite with God's hand to rebuild something amazing. That's what the Israelites did, and we're still talking about them today. And it's just another great example of God's miraculous story that runs from creation all the way through us and into eternity.